Yeah. So, I mean, me personally, I've always had like a huge fascination for emerging tech. Um, and VR in particular has been like a key interest of mine ever since the Kickstarter of the Oculus Rift. One of the biggest downsides with VR is that it's not really easy for most people to get an experience with it, or their experiences with it is, with the Google Cardboard. Um, so back in January, I founded the Baylor Virtual Reality Club at Baylor University, just with the key goal to get everybody who wants a hands-on experience with this technology to be able to have that. Whether that's just to hang out with other people who enjoy the tech and play games, or to actually develop experiences and get hands-on learning with this technology.
I'd love to hear more about your VR origin story.
Since I was in middle school, I was reading up on, like following news sites on technology. I had this thing where I had dinner every night with my family. I would bring them the tech news of the day. That was like my little time to shine growing up. So, I've always, I'm an engineering major. I've always been on like the sort of techie side. That's what I like to do in my free time, what I like to learn about.
The entry point for a lot of people into this community tends to be a meetup or a hackathon.
Sure.
Have you sort of experienced that where you are? You're in Waco, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Waco, and I grew up in Austin.
Austin,
so
okay.
Pretty tacky.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I got the chance to go to like a VR Christmas party back last winter. So that was really cool to actually meet people there. Also, I helped host a booth at South by Southwest Gaming this past spring.
Oh wow,
that was really, really cool. So I got to meet a bunch of people at the booth, and then when we would have breaks to be able to walk around, I'd be able to meet developers, and like the super hot VR developers were there. I had like an hour-long conversation with them, and it's really cool to be able to meet other people in the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how did you get into South by Southwest?
Yeah, so I was talking to Paul Eckert, who's the founder of Austin Virtual League, who basically created this league with the same goal that I did with my club, which was just to let everybody who wants to try out VR to give them that ability, sort of. So he invited me and a couple of the other officers at the Baylor VR Club to come down and not only to help host the events, but also to talk about our organization while we were there.
So what is your vision for Baylor?
So right now we sort of focus on four main things. So our first and our main goal is, as I mentioned, just give everybody the experience. So we have, we just have like casual meetings every other week, which, typically have a theme. So like, when Halloween comes up, we're going to have a horror night, or, I got in contact with the super hot, developers, and we're having a super hot tournament coming up soon. So sort of just like fun, hands-on experiences. Okay. So that's our main goal. Second, we have a development team. So for those who not only want to play around with the tech, but actually want to either pursue a future projects with it, or try to get into the fields behind it. I wanted to give them the opportunity to be able to learn alongside us and to create projects. So we're actually we're partnered with the Baylor Library System. Baylor has a collection of Black gospel music that is renowned. So that came up when we were first talking with the library, I guess, is we were saying, okay, you've provided us a space, you've provided us access to your equipment. We have a development team. We want to do something for you. they said, okay, we have this collection and very few people on campus are actually going and experiencing it. So we want to create something that's immersive, that's cool, that's hip with the kids, that'll have that collection be put to good use.
Cool.
So we're actively developing a sort of like a semi-museum exhibit that will I'll share with you more once we complete it.
Yeah. So I think that was I don't know where maybe you mentioned that in our comment,
Sure.
Something about museums. I didn't see it on your LinkedIn necessarily, but okay. So you've got wider access to, as far as your four overarching goals, wider access to the technology,
right?
Development of experiences. What are the other two?
Yeah. So the two other things that we do as a club, we compete. So I mentioned that we're a part of a league. So the vice president of the club, his name is Jay Kurtowski. Him and I we met a couple of the people at Game Trust, which is GameStop's publishing company, down at South by Southwest. And we were just casually talking, and they said, and we brought up that we wanted to have a competition against Texas A&M's VR club. Since we were on good terms, and I have a couple friends who go to Texas A&M and are a part of that, and they said, they sort of gave us the idea to create a league and to get more than just us two involved. How the esports industry is just booming right now, exploding. They said esports may be the future of sports, and VR is the future of gaming. VR esports is the future, which I thought was pretty powerful. So I was able to reach out to not only Texas A&M, but UC Berkeley or Miami University, Clemson, UT Dallas, all these other colleges around the country that have virtual reality clubs. So I was able to get in contact with them, and everybody pretty much hopped on board. So we're actually starting up our first season in October. So we're finalizing all the details, but I'm super excited about it.
Wow! So explain the season. Is this you get this is development? Is this development or?
So this is gaming. This is gaming.
Okay.
Right. So we're playing 3 different games. So we have Beat Saber, which is going to be sort of like a tournament kind of style. We're going to have Rec Royale, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's a game, like PUBG, Fortnite, Battle Royale.
Sure.
And then we're going to have Echo Arena, which is, Oculus has been pushing really hard as a VR esport. So for the season, we're planning on playing all the teams round robin. And then finally, we're going to have a tournament against the teams, double elimination, in sort of a bracket. Nice. So this will all be remote until it actually grows to be big, just because UC Berkeley is way on the other side of the country from Clemson. Baylor is middle of Texas, so we're all spread out around the country. So
I should. I'm sure University of Washington has a club I could see about getting you in contact with.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In fact, I think I may know the individuals who, or at least a couple years ago.
Sure.
Individuals. So if you're interested, I could.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. One of the things that I've been interested in lately is understanding where VR fits with respect to other emerging technologies. So I've been getting a lot into blockchain, and I've done a little bit of development with AI and ML, and incorporated that with like HoloLens applications and whatnot. And it really seemed to, the combination of the mixed reality and the cognitive services really seemed to make the HoloLens as a device make sense. It's kind of a cumbersome device to use, but you add in like natural language processing and all that sort of thing, that really becomes something.
Makes it a lot easier. Right?
Yeah. I'm curious, have you considered how other technology, where's the intersection point of immersive with blockchain or AI, ML? Or is that not something that you think about?
So, it's not something that I commonly think about, but I kind of feel like they're all growing at the same time and all kind of interweaving together. So like you mentioned with, natural language processing and AI for the HoloLens, I feel like, all that stuff will eventually come together. You can have blockchain, you can have applications run on blockchain that are VR specific. I know back in like the cryptocurrency craze, I think it's called Decentraland. Okay. Which was a currency, probably still is, where their kind of vision was creating like a virtual world where people can buy and own property in the world and do whatever they wanted with it. And the world was all in virtual reality. So like mixing and matching stuff like that, and using blockchain for the back-end transactions and seeing who owns the virtual property, stuff like that. Is really cool, and some really cool ideas with that.
Yeah.
But like controller schemes, actually, because right now, the Vive ones, the Oculus Touch controllers, there's definitely some improvements that can and will be made to further immersion. So I could definitely see, AI or other emerging tech, playing into that.
Okay. Right. So is sort of facilitating our interaction with the devices or within the virtual world.
So with devices, with the virtual world, within specific applications even. So if you're playing, like a first-person shooter game in VR, and you want to maximize the power of your computer to give you the best graphics at the specific time wherever you're looking. So, stuff like that, where it can predict where you're going to look. It can only render those, pixels instead of the entire world around you, stuff like that. So it's sort of like optimization.
Sure. Like foveated rendering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right on. Where do you, so there's a ton of acronyms and definitions floating around for immersive.
Sure.
How do you define virtual reality, or how do you define the technology? What are some core traits or aspects of the technology that should be included in a definition of it?
I would just say so right now we're at the very early stages. So you have your headset, you have your controllers, but I feel like eventually that's going to go away. So I feel like virtual reality should be not defined by the device, but by the experience. So it's being immersed in a artificial world. I think that's what I would, tone it all down to.
Okay. So removed from the device.
Removed from, your surroundings and completely immersed inside of artificial world.
I like that. I've gone back and forth. I think I'm kind of settling on virtual reality to describe everything. And it's sort of everything from AR to mixed reality to
Sure.
So I think you're accurate in the way you're describing it, is that virtual reality is inherently, at least my current understanding of it, inherently removed from any sort of technology, and it's basically a creation, an artistic creation of the mind that we can inhabit in different ways, right? So
definitely.
So okay. No, I like it. Another question I want to ask you was with regard to the individuals that you see coming to your meetings.
Sure.
Do they tend to be folks who are already involved in the community, or are they
Not at all.
about it? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So it's mostly, right now at least, it's largely a collection of people in the like engineering or computer science departments at Baylor who say, oh, I've seen things about VR. I haven't experienced it. I want to come and check it out. Or, hey, I'm not doing anything on Monday night. And a friend says, oh, I'm going to go and play, video games, virtual reality video games. And they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. So it's mostly like the casual, like, oh, I want to try this out and have fun sort of people.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, that's good. Now, as far as like the, it's still being a pretty high level, a high barrier to entry for your average person. What do you think needs to happen in order to lower that barrier to make it, whether it's the hardware needs to get better / cheaper and cheaper, needs to be, a separate, standalone device type of thing, or
Sure.
the software needs to be better, needs to provide more value. What are the largest barriers to entry?
Sure. So by far, I think cost is the number one barrier to entry. My parents kind of freaked out when I first purchased my Vive, and they're like, "You spent $800 on what?" I was like, "Well, it's the future," and they just absolutely blown away. So obviously, price has come down since then. But yeah, so in order to make the cost cheaper, like obviously you can't just wave your hands and say, "Oh, now it's $100 for a headset." But as the technology improves, I feel like even the older technology, like our current technology, it is good, right? So it's a good way to get into the VR community to get experience. But not only does the hardware, the VR hardware itself, have to get cheaper, but we also need to work on optimizations so that we can power it using lower powered computers. Because while people in the engineering and computer science dorms, like the gamers, they may have gaming rigs, computers able to run it. Your average person doesn't. So it needs to be able to work on lower end systems. Also, I have the chance to get an Oculus Go through the Oculus Start program, and I do feel like it's a lot easier for your everyday person to just have a standalone headset, not have to worry about plugging it into something or setting up sensors or the whole hassle of actually getting it up and running. So I do feel like eventually the casual kind of consumer-based VR will all be all in ones, with only the hardcore, super dedicated, I want the best of the best people getting the actual PC-driven VR systems.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I don't have a VR. Well, so Microsoft sent me a VR, one of their mixed reality, the Acer mixed reality.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And I signed up for one of their programs or whatever, and they sent it to me, and it's pretty sweet, but I don't have a computer that on it.
Exactly.
Because I've been on, my background is in web development for the past 7 years, so I'm all Mac,
right.
And like, well, okay, I'll just go get. It'd be sweet to have a Windows machine, and I'll just go get one. But man, I want a productivity machine. Not a gaming laptop necessarily. And I was struck by how difficult it was to. I just gave up. I'll probably get a gaming machine off of Craigslist or something just to experiment with it. But so I hadn't had any firsthand experience in acquiring the equipment. I've always just used it at UW or what another place that just had headsets laying around.
Sure.
So I was that was something that wow, this is difficult.
Definitely.
I agree with you on that. What are some What are some resources, some inspiration that you could recommend for other folks?
I mean, yeah, you just mentioned Ready Player One, and I was talking to my parents about that the other day. Whereas I can definitely see our society eventually moving to that. So I'd recommend the book over the movie if you're interested in learning more about the sort of VR aspect, because one of the main things is that the main character goes to school in VR. He doesn't actually have to physically travel. He's surrounded by his classmates on a virtual world that's just all school. So it's interesting to see that juxtaposed with like the gaming aspect of VR with the social aspect of basically the entire world's basically taking everything that you do in the world takes place in VR. And I can definitely see that happening eventually. But also, I feel like it's really important to pay attention to the current things that are happening. So every now and then you'll see like a different news article pop up with, for example, Lowe's. Now they let you try out like a chainsaw, I think, inside some select stores. So they have like, a Vive set up where you can just walk in and you can say, oh, this is how I learned to, use this chainsaw. So I pick up the saw and then it guides me on how to trim hedges and stuff like that. So just seeing what other companies are actually doing with this tech, staying up to date. So.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the ways that you stay up to date? Are there blogs that?
Sure. So yeah, I follow, Oculus on Twitter. I read, it's not really blogs, but news, like tech news sites. So whether that's, like Reddit, I follow r/Vive and r/Oculus, which are specific communities where people post relative VR news. And, there's discussion behind it and what people think of that news and what people think of the future because of that news. So stuff like that is really interesting to me. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good point. You mentioned the project you're doing with the Baylor Library.
Sure.
Outside of that, are there any exciting projects or events on the horizon?
Sure. So I know most of the guys who are on the development team want to build a game after. So I know that'll come in the next year and a half. But we have done some smaller projects. So an example of this, I spent a weekend, this past summer, where I was able to develop a virtual experience that we're going to use for recruiting. So I just plopped a bunch of things in Unity, got it up and running on my Oculus Go. And since the entire development team is involved in the Oculus Start program, we all got shipped Oculus Go's for free, which is awesome. Oculus is great. So basically at events where we're trying to get members, we're going to have them basically be immersed inside of a club meeting. So we the application itself is more of an informative one. There's not really a game aspect. It's, I can look over here. I can learn about what they do at meetings. I can look over here. I can see, they're a part of a VR Esports league playing against Texas A&M. Over here I can actually develop things like this, and they'll show me how. So I found that to be a really cool project to work on. Yeah,
that is cool. And you would be able to use that at events that you go to.
Yeah. So there's an event coming up very soon called Late Night at Baylor. So it's basically a night where all of the organizations on campus set up booths, and students can walk around and say, and they can check out organizations that they may be interested in. So events like that, or events where we're just trying to get outreach, because one of the hardest things, we started in January, right? And we basically grew by word of mouth. But, I'd run into people, every day who were like, I didn't know there was a VR club on campus when I was, wearing my shirt. And so just actually getting our name out there. So we're planning on doing, hosting a lot of sort of info sessions and stuff like that to grow.
That's interesting. I'm just thinking on that. I might have some questions, in the next couple days about that.
Sure.
But as a way of going to a farmer's market or something, right? Where you're at, you have the opportunity to interact with the individual and sort of show them your story, I suppose. Invite them into your reality. That's an interesting use case for sure, especially one with the standalone unit, where the standalone units,
exactly,
would be beneficial. Huh. What year are you at Baylor?
I'm going to be a junior,
okay.
Or I am a junior.
And then, are you going to take this? Do you see yourself sticking with VR post Baylor, or?
Yeah. So I've gotten a really cool opportunity actually for next summer. So I'll actually be working at ExxonMobil on their VR simulations. So they're using VR for like safety and training. So I'll be able to do that there, and I definitely see myself sticking with this industry in the future.
Especially in Texas, you've got so much industry, and I think that's a real valuable use case for in simulation and training, and you've got an opportunity to build out industry,
like real world.
Yeah, right. So I think that's really cool. Cool, right on.
Yeah.
Is Baylor now? So you're in engineering,
right?
Is there anything that Baylor is doing with regard to Immersive?
So we're doing the film and digital media department at Baylor is doing a lot of research into emerging technologies. It actually offers a class on them, which is really cool. But that's one of our club advisors actively researches VR. So like last semester, he was doing a study on motion sickness and how to reduce motion sickness within VR. And then actually the act of sort of feeling strange, I don't know how to put it, but when you actually take off the headset and you just have that moment where you're like, whoa, this is different. So yeah, there's a lot of research going on. Class-wise, there's the emerging tech class that the film and digital media department offers, which gives hands-on experience not only with VR, but they had a section on blockchain. They had they just bring in new tech. So I know I got to play around with like a camera with 16 different lenses, something like that. So just cool hands-on experiences.
Yeah, right on. Cool, man. Really appreciate your willingness to come on and
thank you for having me.
VR. Right on. Well, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, James.
Good one. Yeah, thank you. Bye.